Hello and welcome to the first release of 2023. In this release we will show some of the key features of this release, but I would also like to advertise for our release notes in the Help Center, where we will describe all the new features and improvements that comes with this release. The first improvement is a shared feature across all our modules. So now when you click on a header in our list views, you can easily create charts using that specific header. So in this instance, I'm grouping on the type. From here, I can see how many tasks I have of the different types. From here, I can use the drill down function to see when the inspections were created and then have a really good overview of my data. If I want to return to the list view, I simply click on the list in the top right corner. This is a feature that's shared across all our modules, so you can, for example, also use it in Box if you would like to make a chart by any of the data in the Box module. Next, we have Emil, who will present some new features for the location module.
The first thing I will show you is our ability to now show rooms in 3D. So what you see here is when you first log into location. So what you can do now is click on the 3D icon, and you can see that we added these two buttons up here, and we also moved the zones up here, where you can now click on rooms. And this will display all your rooms inside of your federated models. So these are clickable, so you can see all the properties that you have on your rooms. And you can also see them here in a color legend, where you can also zoom directly to them. We recommend searching for these rooms if there's something specific you want to find. And you can also, here you can remove the show hidden, the ghosting of objects, and enable it as well, or hide the whole legend. A small but really nice new feature is also we give the ability to expand all properties. So when you look at an object here, we have now added the possibility to here see all the properties in a flat list instead of this grouping. So when you click here, you get the flat list here of all your properties. These can be arranged by name or value, and you can still use the filter on value if you want to see a specific type. Then you can filter on it or copy it directly to the clipboard from this flat list. Another small thing that we've added to drawings in location is that now when you measure, we will also show the angle that you are measuring against the perpendicular line. So this is both for location and box. Then when you do a point-to-point measure, we will add the angles.
So now we will have a look at some of the new features for the box module. And the first one are some new features for the revisions within Dalux. So when using the shared and published revision, previously they were only in numbers, just as the main version in files. But now when going to the box settings and clicking on revision formatting here in the metadata tile, you can now select different formatting options for the revisions. So per default, it will only be numbers. So we have only numbers for both files, version, and shared and published revision. But now you can also add numbers with prefix. So in my example, I could say P for preliminary for the shared revision and C for contractual for the published revision. This is one option using prefixes. It could also be letters. So for the published revision, it would then use letters. And here you also have the option to add some skipped letters if you, for example, would like to add I and O as skipped letters in order to avoid confusion if it's a 1 or 0, so the I and O will just be skipped in the number series. A small note here is when using the letters and reaching the revision Z, it would then just continue as AA and AB and so on. So if we make this setting and go to the box project, you can see here in the columns shared and published revision that it uses the prefix before the actual revision number. The next feature is a better way of managing the statuses across the different file areas in your project. So when using files, shared files and published files, or maybe only for files and published files, you can now link your statuses to a certain file area. So what often happened is that you have one long list of statuses, but some of them are actually only allowed to be used within the published file area. So if you now link a certain status to a specific file area, like in this case published, this status will not be shown when uploading a file. Only when publishing a file, either manually or through the workflow, you will get the option to select this published status. So in my case, I have these statuses as statuses for files and shared, and they will be the only ones that the user can select when uploading a file. The default setting is on your projects is set to all, so nothing will change with this release. You can just continue as you want, but you now have the option to go into the status setup and manage even better what statuses can be selected when in the file process. So just as an example, if I now go to a folder and want to upload a file and select a file, what you see here in the status drop-down menu is that the statuses set as published statuses cannot be selected. And also when going to the box settings here in the file flows, here I have an authorization workflows towards the published files, and therefore the status in published files here in the drop-down, you will not be able to select the statuses that are linked to the file area, files and shared. So only the ones set to all or published can here be selected as the output status for this workflow. And while looking at the file flows, we also added a nice little feature that might save a lot of time. If you have some workflows that are more or less the same, but perhaps only the first step or maybe the flow starter is different, then you can now select the flow and duplicate it. You will get exactly the same setup. You can give it a new name, make the changes you want, and then activate it. So very importantly, when duplicating a workflow, it will always be deactivated so that you can make the needed changes before the new duplicated flow can be used. And for the box module, we also have added some improvements for the comments feature. And in this video, I would like to highlight two of them. So please make sure to check the release notes for even more improvements. But the first one is more default views or filters for the comments. So previously we had the all comments and the inbox view. The inbox was both for the personal user, but also all comments assigned to the user group. So now we made it more clear with the My Inbox only containing the comments where the current user is set as responsible, but then you still have the group inbox with everything where your user group is assigned to. And then on top of that, we also have the overdue deadlines. So this allows you with one click to get an overview of all the comments where the deadline is overdue. But if you're working with your own filters, you can of course still do that from all comments, perhaps only show the active ones. And now you can not only save them as my filters, but you can also save it with your user group. This requires you to be the group admin. But if I now do so, here within the saved filters, I have my own filters, but I also have the filters shared with my user group. And before we continue with Dalux Field, let's have a look at the meetings feature, which is available for both box and field. And the first new feature is or are the templates for meetings. So when you go to the meeting section and create a new meeting or completely new type, you can either create it from scratch, as you could before, or you can use a template that you have created in the settings. So in this case, I can choose the template. It will take the agenda and the meeting, so the meeting categories and meeting items from the template, and then you can start to plan the first meeting based on this template. So a use case could be that you maybe have the same template for all kickoff meetings with different subcontractors inside, but you don't want to create them as follow-up meetings because it's an individual meeting every time. Then you could create the template for this kickoff meeting here, and then when you create the new one, give it the right name with the relevant subcontractor, and then plan the meeting. In order to do so, you will go to the settings, and either in box or field, you will here have the meeting templates, and here you can create the new template with the agenda. You can either create a new one, or you can copy from another project. So this is also a good use case if you want to use the same templates across your projects. You can copy from one to another. Another highly requested feature for the meetings was the option to make changes to the meeting if it's planned or ongoing. And this is something you can do now. So even if the meeting is planned or ongoing, you still have the option to make changes. So you can add or remove attendees. You can change the meeting date and time, add the description. So let's say that in the last minute someone else is joining the meeting, you still have the option to add them, or if someone isn't in the project anymore, you can remove them. And the rules are that when you make changes up here, so the general information, every attendee will be notified. But if you only add or remove someone from the attendee list, only these users will be notified when making changes while the meeting is planned or ongoing. The last feature I would like to highlight for the meetings is that we've now placed the meeting items in a list view. So previously you had to search for certain topics or open every single meeting to read the meeting items, but now you have the list view as you know it from everywhere in Dalux. So here we just list all the meeting items. From here you can make the filters, you can group them, search them as you like, and jump directly to a specific meeting item. Of course, they can only be changed if the meeting that this meeting item is coming from is still ongoing. Once it's finished, also the meeting item will be locked. But this will allow you to search for certain meeting items very quickly by using the columns here in the top. But to make it even easier, we also added one more feature for the meeting items in the list view, and these are two predefined views. So you can here quickly click on My Meeting Items, and these will show all the meeting items where either I, as the current user, is set as responsible, or when it's set to all, because then it's also relevant for me. So this is a quick view of getting all the relevant meeting items for the current user. But you can also click here on the overdue meeting items and quickly get a view on all the meeting items that are overdue.
Next, we're going to look at some new features for Dalux Build.
So the first thing I will introduce here is our brand new quantities that we've added inside Field. So what you can see here is that I'm in the Field module, and here we have our quantities. This is something that can be enabled inside of settings. So this is basically all of my federated models in the 3D viewer here. And then I have all of my objects in a list view down here. You can see that I have 6,425 objects in this. I have 3 models in this example. And now I can start filtering out something that I want to see. So if I, for example, want to see all my pipes, I can do a cut here. I can find one of my pipes. I can then view the properties here. And then I can start filtering on these. Let's say I, for example, want to see the length of these. These can be added directly to the table down here. So you can see that I've now added this table here called length. I can also start filtering if I, for example, want to filter on my category here. This is docs, and I'll also filter on this value here. So now I only see these docs, and I see the total length of these. So this could be just one example. These can be saved as views or as filters here, and then they'll end up here. And this is based on the user group. So in the same way we have all over the system where you can save these as a group admin to this group. So if I go into the carpenter, look at the ceilings, for example, then I've set up a list for him where he can see the name of the object, the category, the type of object it is, and also the total area. What you can see down here is it sums up the total area. This is something that will slowly be rolled out for all new users, that we sum it up, but it should be there slowly after the release. So this way you can set up all of your filters based on your objects inside of your 3D model. These can also be exported to Excel. So if you click on these 3 dots here, you can export it directly to Excel. So what it exports is the things that you have in your list here. In this case, it will be 17 rows and the things that you have here that you have applied to your list. That is what it will export. This is also here you save or update your filters over here. And you can also, if you want to start a bit from scratch, you can also add all your properties here. So in here you have all your properties across all of your objects in a flat list here, also groups, and these can also be added from there. But it is easier to add them directly from these, because we can see that properties is not always the same name in the same grouping.
The next new feature is that we made it easier to attach files from linked tasks. So if you change status on a task with linked tasks, you can now go into the Add Attachment page and choose from linked tasks. And from here, you will be able to choose photos and files from the linked tasks and link them directly to the task you are about to update. Next is an improvement when raising a task from a checklist item. So here, when I click on floor and floor coverings and I raise a snag, we will now automatically take the name of the checklist item and add it to the subject of the task. Of course, this subject can be edited before I send the task, but this will make it easier to create the task directly using the subject of the checklist item. For now, this will only work for web, but it will soon be added in the mobile app as well. For exports, we now made it easier to find the single reports. So if you make an export that includes an Excel spreadsheet and the single reports of the tasks, approvals, or checklists, you will now have a link directly to the different reports. So if I click on the link, that will automatically open up that specific report that is stored in the folder structure. Next improvement is within our project standards. Here it's now possible to take the checklist and associate them to the workflows in the project standard. This means that when you start a new project, these checklists will already be in your project and assigned to the correct workflows. Simply click into Checklist Associations, click on Add, choose which checklist type you would like to use, then which work package, and then the specific workflow. And then simply click Add. Once you then start a new project with this project standard, the checklists will already be assigned to the specific workflows. The last improvement for field is for our BIM and Zone property fields. When you add these to a template, we will now suggest BIM properties from the BIM model. So for example, if you need the category, you simply need to write CAT and we will find the category. It's of course possible to write BIM properties that doesn't exist in the BIM model yet, so you can still create your templates even though you haven't uploaded the BIM models yet.
And now for the highlights of Handover. The first thing is we've added a feature for analytics. So up in the left-hand corner here, when you enter the Handover module, you'll now be guided with this view you see here. So it is a dashboard that is dependent on the users signing in and their role on the project. Now signed in as a review manager, I can see key metrics on the project. I can see assets grouped by work package and status, and the assets awaiting my review, and then tasks per work package. Signed in as a responder, I get my own dashboard. Still get the key metrics relevant for me, and then I get asset information by template and status, tasks awaiting my reaction, and then task per assignee. The dashboard feature we've added here is designed to give both the review managers and the responders a greater overview on the projects dependent on their role. The next feature we've added is the ability of accessing your own product libraries on your own company profile. Previously, we've had the feature of having access to the product library of the company profile owning the project, but now this has been expanded. So as a responder, or anyone really having a stake in the project and access to a company profile, can now access this. So if I want to add a product, I can do that actually directly from my company profile library now, selecting that and importing that specific product to the project, and then get all the data attached to the product directly on the asset here. The final thing for these Handover highlights is the ability of attaching a product directly upon asset creations. Isolating my object here and wanting to create this hot water tank as an asset. I'll create the asset, and now I see product name here. I can either choose from the already existing on the project, or I can choose again directly from the company profile, also from within here. So clicking here will open up the product dialog, and I can access my company profile library, choose my product, and then fill in the remainder of information from the asset creation here. Now all of the product information is already available on the asset upon creation.
This was all the features we wanted to present in the first release video of 2023. In our Help Center, you can find the written release notes where all the different features are described with pictures and notes. Thank you for watching.